Look, I think this is a super interesting season for the Nittany Lions. We're coming off of multiple years in a row where um, beyond and below the college football playoff, this team has accomplished everything possible, minus a college football playoff berth and Big Ten championships. 10-2 seasons is basically the bread and butter of this James Franklin team. And admittedly, guys, there was a really funny situation that happened this week. So I called Mason. I called Mason on Monday, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just read, dude." James Franklin said that if they don't make the playoffs this year, then he's going to step aside and resign. And I could not believe it. I absolutely could not believe it. Well, the reason I couldn't believe it or wrap my head around it was because it was absolutely not true. It was an April Fool's joke. And this thing had me calling my cousin here, Mason, and being like, "Dude, did you see this? They got me, dude. They got me so freaking good." And I was actually kind of mad about it. But I feel like it was just believable enough for me because of the situation that Penn State's been in. I was just telling everybody, Mason, about how I called you this past week, and I was like, "Dude, James Franklin's going to resign if he doesn't make the playoff." Mason's like, "What?" Out there working on the road, you're just like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy." But I think it just kind of shows where this fan base is at with this team. There's going to be a lot of change. You got Andy Kotelnicki coming in to run this offense. He comes over from Kansas. Everybody knows Kansas had a really great creative offense. They really did. Scoring points wasn't the problem. It was the defense. Keeping the other team out of the end zone was really the issue for the Kansas Jayhawks. But this guy had a lot of creativity, man. I mean, he had both quarterbacks on the field at the same time. And I think, that's exactly what this Penn State team needs. They need some creativity. They need some playmakers. Look, there was games last year where fans were booing, like the Michigan game. There were fans in the stands booing the play calling in the Michigan game. And I don't think that it's the fact that James Franklin doesn't want to throw the ball down the field. I don't think that's the case. I think that the team was ill-equipped to do so. So that begs the question in this offense this year, what are the wide receivers going to look like? You add Julian Fleming, I think that he has to pan out if you want to have a successful season or really get to where you want to go in that elite status of trying to make the college football playoff. And defensively, how do you answer questions at linebacker? Admittedly, I'm less concerned about the defense. I think the defense is going to be fine. There are guys there to I think they're going to step up, and I think they're going to be fine. Abdul Carter stepped away from the linebacker role, going to the defensive end spot. And honestly, Mason, I mean, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, or maybe I'm just dead wrong, but I felt like this was, I don't know Abdul Carter, so I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I felt like this was, in a sense, kind of a selfish move to go to defensive end. They're already stacked as a team on the defensive end position. And so I felt like this wasn't for the best interest of the team. It sounded more like, to me, Abdul Carter decided that he would be playing defensive end, and Penn State just kind of had to, serve that spot up for him. So we could go round and round and talk all day about this offense. I think it's a good offensive line. I think it's a really good running back room with Allen coming back. It comes down to those playmakers. Can Lambert Smith, help this team get over the top? Can Julian Fleming do the same? Can Drew Allar be great instead of just a game managing quarterback? It's fun to go out and beat the hell out of teams like, Bowling Green and Kent State and Illinois, and that's typically what Penn State does. But then it comes down to 2 games a year, the offense can't really do anything. And this new schedule is going to really help, guys. If you look at the schedule here on your screen, we're going to go through it in a minute, but as you see, there's no Michigan on there. So with the new system in the Big Ten, there is no Big Ten East or Big Ten West. And so you had those big 3 that were piled up together in the Big Ten East, and all 3 had to play each other every year. and kind of canceled each other out of contention for some big spots and playoff spots, I feel like. So now that the Big Ten is kind of more spread out, and there's no divisions, you're not going to always have Michigan and Ohio State on that schedule, and I think that's a nice thing for the Penn State program. So, what are your thoughts on Penn State and this offense and defense? As we're in spring, we don't, guys. This isn't a deep dive, okay? We're not going deep. We're going to do that later in the offseason as we know more. I want to see the spring game. I want to see. What Tom Allen has installed on this defense. If you don't know, then now you know. Tom Allen was a head coach at Indiana for a long time. Got fired, took a buyout, and now he's coaching the defense, and he seems like he's having a ball. Kind of doing his best Chip Kelly impression defensive style there in Penn State. So, what is your thoughts as Penn State finishes 10-2 last year with a Peach Bowl loss to Ole Miss, 10-3 overall? What is the expectation this year? The win-loss over-under is set at 9.5. How do you feel about that? And let's go over the schedule.
Yeah, so I'll get to the schedule in a minute. And in particular that 9.5, I'm not sure. I feel like I've got a pretty good bet on that, but let me go over the roster here a little bit. I've got some things to point out. So Julian Fleming, obviously being brought in, was huge. He's the wide receiver that's getting a lot of buzz. He's the player that's getting a lot of buzz as a transfer player on the offensive side of the football. And rightly so. I mean, this is a wide receiver group that was not good last year, right? Dante Cephas ends up leaving the program because they were that bad. He transferred to Kansas State now and was expected to come in from Kent State and be a playmaker, and couldn't catch. Just really didn't have any games where he lived up to the billing. So I think that you kind of have addition by subtraction there. I think Julian Fleming is a definite step up and a more guaranteed transfer player than Dante Cephas was coming in. You still got Lambert Smith. I think that gives you a pretty good 1-2 combo with Fleming and Lambert Smith. But I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State doesn't continue to look at what's out there in the transfer portal, in the wide receiver room in particular, to get them some more pass catching options. They're usually pretty good at tight end as well. I think Tyler Warren is going to be pretty good. Again, I did hear, you mentioned Katron Allen. Apparently he's battling a little bit of an injury, potentially. It hasn't been announced, but he was not seen at practice earlier this week. That's not what you like to hear, but at the same time, you're not worried about a junior running back, getting reps in spring practice. You'd rather see him get healthy, right? So it doesn't concern me too much, but at the same time, kind of interested to know what that injury is. If there is an injury, could have been a non-physical reason, for him not being there.
Yeah.
Nolan Rucci comes in. He's gonna start right away at right tackle. I think anytime you can find a good player in the transfer portal to play offensive line, you do what you can to get them, because they just don't happen. Like that doesn't happen a lot on the offense or defensive side of the football in the transfer portal on the lines of scrimmage. And then on the defensive side of the football, real quick, AJ Harris comes in from Georgia. He was their biggest get overall as a player. As a transfer player, he was actually ranked higher than Julian Fleming. He's a good solid player, and I think that he's going to step in right away and play cornerback. Another former Georgia player and cornerback, Jalen Kimber, comes in. Now you may recognize the name from Florida because he played for Florida for a couple of seasons, but his freshman year he was at Georgia, never saw the playing field, transferred to Florida. Now is in his second transfer, coming over to Penn State. I think that he will end up overtaking Cam Miller for that position, but at the end of the day, he's going to have some playing time, right? He's going to get some playing time and be a factor, even if it's as a second teamer. All right, so looking at this schedule, I do think that Penn State is going to get marginally better. One question that I have is Drew Allar. Can he go from like you said, kind of an average player, right? average quarterback, not really a threat downfield like you would hope, given his stature and given his recruiting ranking and things like that. I hope that he's able to take a step forward and get 15 to 20% better this year. And if he does that, I think that this could be a playoff team. So looking at this schedule, I'm seeing 10-2 last year, lost to Michigan and Ohio State. This team could win 11 games this year. I mean, they've got some tough ones. West Virginia is tough. At West Virginia, it's going to be a tough game. At Wisconsin, right? That's going to be a tough game. Ohio State is one that you have to look at and say we're probably going to lose, guys. Like just be aware. It's going to be a whiteout game or whatever. But that's probably one that I'd say they have maybe a 25% chance at winning, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then USC, I feel pretty confident in saying that Penn State's better than USC, but you never know. With the Lincoln Riley offense, we don't know what Miller Moss is going to be like. USC's new quarterback now that Caleb Williams has declared for the NFL draft. So that's another one, but those are 4 games, and I only really count one of those as a for sure loss. And I would give them a greater than 50% chance to win the other 3. So I think that 10 wins is the floor here. And I think that 11 wins is very doable, and at 11-1, you're probably playing for a Big Ten championship, and you're definitely going to the college football playoff at that point. Love to see them against Oregon. I wish that was a matchup we could see, but at the end of the day, I think this is a pretty favorable schedule for Penn State, and I think that I know it wasn't a true. I know it was just a rumor, an April Fool's joke or whatever, but I think we'll continue to see James Franklin coach the Penn State Nittany Lions moving forward.
Yeah, one would think. Typically, whenever a head coach gets rid of their coordinators, which I know Manny Diaz ended up taking a head coaching job at Duke. They didn't want to get rid of Manny Diaz.
Yeah.
But that's kind of usually buys you at least a couple of years. And look, this schedule comes at the right time. I think you nailed it, Mason. This is a very favorable schedule. You get Ohio State at home, okay, your hardest game of the year by far. Who's to say? Ohio State it doesn't have trouble, at quarterback that day, or there's not snow on the ground, and or the wind's blowing. We all know how the Ohio State Buckeyes don't like the wind to blow, right? So this is a very favorable schedule. These teams that they pick up from the Big Ten West, they always beat the hell out of them. And I know there's no Big Ten West anymore, but I am saying, for those teams, they typically have really good success against them. So USC, I feel like Penn State is going to be able to blow them off the line of scrimmage. That's my anticipation for the Penn State team to be able to do that against USC. Just like we kind of saw Notre Dame just absolutely bludgeon USC last year on the lines of scrimmage, I think Penn State can kind of mimic that again. So I think that 9.5. I think I'm betting the over on the 9.5. Mason, don't you think?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean,
10 for sure. You can definitely do 10, bro.
I think so. I feel pretty good about Penn State getting at least 10 wins, just because of their schedule, And like I said, I feel like this team's gonna be better than last year. I know you lose Chop Robinson, but you lose Fasciano on the offensive line. Those are 2 absolute studs, that are impossible to replace. But Theo Johnson at tight end, I think, was a big loss. But at the end of the day, I think if Drew Allar can get 20% better, that sort of offsets everything, because this is the quarterback we're talking about, and he's going to get the ball every play.
Well, if you're a Penn State fan, thank you so much for watching this video. We want you to be part of the First and Long College Football family, not family like the LSU coach. We're from the South, but we ain't that Southern. We want you to come be part of our college football family. Penn State is in for a very exciting year, and we're going to be covering them throughout that exciting year that we've got coming up. And I know Penn State fans have got to be feeling good about making the college football playoff. I want to hear from you in the comment section. What does this team got to do to make the college football playoff and or win a Big Ten championship this year?